Hey everybody, welcome to Videopoem Open Culture. We have a great show today. We have the legendary activist Don DeBar. Say hi to my
Yikes.
friend Don.
Legendary. That makes
Yeah,
me.
he is legendary. I started watching Don on Austin and cable TV when he was giving the powers to be a really hard time. It was so enjoyable, and I was sad when that cable station was no longer.
Yeah.
You know.
That was fun, too, doing that stuff. Legendary makes me sound like I'm 1,000 years old and dead.
Well, you're on. You run, and we'll get to this show specifically going to be about the CPR Metro fundraiser, but Don can be heard on the radio. He's also been making a name for himself in RT, Press TV, just to name a couple of places.
Yeah, I've been. I did a RT yesterday about about them serving Prime Minister Modi with papers when he came to New York for the United Nations General Assembly. I've been enjoying that stuff. It's nice to have an opportunity to express your opinion in front of a large audience and well-informed audience, like a lot of foreign media outlets have. The media in other countries doesn't play to the same media audience that you have here, where it's
Wasn't
all
it ironic that, for
sensationalism.
instance, with RT, which is Russia Today, you can get more what's going on from Russia, like supposedly the
Right,
close, than America.
right. Even Iran is press TV. Yep. It's there you have a very interesting inversion in the information world, or in any event, the image of it that we were sold when we were growing up, because RT is Russia Today is the largest. It has the largest audience on YouTube, for example, of every news organization, larger than CNN by far, larger than the New York Times and Washington Post, CBS, all of these, Fox, and this is the successor to the media that they used to make fun of here, Pravda, Izvestia, all of that. And they bring a lot of information that's very important that's missing in American media, which
Like information, like they actually give you
the
information
information.
instead of fantasy. So let's talk about CPR Metro. Talk about that a little bit, the history and what it is, because it's a great thing. And then we'll talk about the fundraiser coming up.
We we meaning Bernard White, former program
Also another
director.
legendary activist.
Yeah, he's. I'll tell him he said legendary. The first thing he's going to say is, "That makes me sound like I'm old and dead."
No,
um,
these guys are anything but old and dead.
Bernard was the program director of the former WBAI. That's how he puts it, and he and I 3 years ago this December decided to jumpstart an internet radio station, and then to branch that out into other media. So we started along with a group of folks who were also either still involved in Pacifica or purged when they had the takeover in 2009 from around the country, but based in New York. We started Community Progressive Radio, which is what the CPR stands for, and for the URL, because we're based in New York City, we decided to use cprmetro.org. So that's what that is. In the beginning, we broadcast 6 hours of original live programming from Monday through Friday, and we would do recordings of outside events over the weekend. We've since picked up other producers and other programs, and now we run 24/7 programming.
Which are
on
great. They're
CPR.
from all around the world. They're like, what's the guy the one that comes from South America? Like I think it's on Thursdays or.
Yeah, we have.
He's great too, and they all bring their distinct personality and humor.
We have folks from Abiyomi Ezekwe, who's a journalist that's been doing Pan African Wire for years. Has a weekly program, Pan African Journal. It's an hour long, and he goes through the news wires in Africa, all the different things that have been happening, and throughout the diaspora around the world, the African diaspora. We carry Black Agenda Radio, Glenn Ford, Nellie Bailey, and Bruce Dixon, and Margaret Kimberly, and all of those folks. On Tuesdays, we carry Building Bridges, which is a Pacifica program, Mimi Rosenberg and Ken Nash, but they do a special program for us every week. And a bunch of other things. In addition to that, we started a year ago, actually tomorrow it'll be the 1 year anniversary, September 30th. We started doing a half-hour daily news program Monday through Friday, the CPR News. And that we have been promoting to other radio stations, terrestrial radio stations, over-the-air radio stations. We have so far about 40 that are carrying it in the United States. College stations, some Pacifica stations, and others. And to produce that, I'm the executive producer of that. We use reports from some of the same sources that I work with outside of CPR, like RT and Press TV, Telesur, and we have our own pieces that we produce, interviews and such with various people about different topics. United Nations Radio, and then we use some things like from Black Agenda Radio, Liberation Radio, a whole bunch of other
What's
sources.
interesting too is that sometimes you bring in up historical stuff like this day, and then
Yeah.
you
There's
play
a whole
like
lot
there was
of
that day
things.
I thought was interesting. Like there was like some anniversary when Churchill spoke in Missouri.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That's
So
what
like
I remember that.
it's not only getting the news, but you get a history lesson, and it's a history lesson that's not usually presented.
Yeah, it's what we try to do it in a way that ties some of the history to to things that are happening now. One of my pet peeves growing up was that so many people that are around me that were consuming news and would be talking about current events didn't know any of the history, and they didn't see the echoes of the history or hear them in the things that they were watching now. That was one part of it. The other part is we only get one side of the story on almost everything. I mean,
Without a doubt, like I remember when you educated me on Gaddafi and what was going on with him, because I'd only heard, because I used to think, I'm a liberal, but that guy must be a madman, and then like you educated me. And
Yeah.
just the
I
other
thought
day,
the same thing until I
you were
met
playing
him.
the translation of a speech he gave to the UN a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
I know. There's so much that's missing. So what we do with the CPR News, let's look at the Ukrainian Crisis, for example. So that's what it's called here. You have a narrative that is a constant narrative. This is the history of that crisis, and it's constant, whether it's Fox telling it, or MSNBC, whatever, right, left, center, the whole commercial.
well, what's
media,
interesting too, like
certainly.
MSNBC is supposedly liberal, but from a real perspective,
Yeah,
they're
not,
extremely
of course they're not,
conservative, right?
Of course, I mean, it's General Electric, but so anyway, so the story is about Ukraine that the Ukrainian people wanted to join the EU, and their Russian favoring president didn't want to because the Russians said you're not allowed. So he started hemming and hawing, and the people rebelled against this corrupt president, and he ran away from his country. And then the Russians started doing bad stuff and made all these terrible things happen. And by the way, they shot down a Malaysian airliner.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you hear. And so, when they cover the UN, for example, the General Assembly's been going since last Wednesday through this Tuesday. The annual debate. 193 member countries have the opportunity to be heard for half hour or whatever on things of the day in front of each other. You hear that narrative embedded into the news here. You'll hear President Obama say it, and maybe the Prime Minister of Poland say it, or whatever. And it looks like, if you're watching the news, then you assume that that's exactly what happened. Well, there are also other people saying other things, and many of them documented with facts, heavily documented. And so what we do is we'll play a clip, maybe one produced by the UN, for example, that features this perspective of that plays in the American media, and then we'll do some other headlines, and then we'll say, okay. The Soviet foreign minister, excuse me, look how old I am. The Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, was at the United Nations General Assembly, and he offered a detailed critique of President Obama's comments. And then I'll play, unedited, for 19 minutes or whatever, Lavrov's comments. People are hearing that. Okay, fine, it's their point of view, so you can't take it.
What's interesting too, you're not just throwing up like a soundbite. Like,
No,
you get
exactly.
on American media like a 30-second.
Give the other side a chance to be heard. Let people make their minds up. and so I look at it like as an antidote to the imbalance that's in the media out there now. If people listen, so they hear 3 hours of CNN today, they get a half hour or something else, and maybe it makes the juices flow a little bit. And that's what we're.
Well, what's it
trying
like
to do.
producing something like that? Must be like a tremendous amount of work.
It's a lot of work. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I usually finish about 4:30, quarter to 5 in the afternoon. I get maybe an hour break in the middle, maybe.
And now no one's paying you for this, and this like
No,
ties
no.
into like what this.
This
this
is our first
fundraiser's gonna be
fundraiser. We've
about.
been doing this for free for 3 years. Well, the news has been the last year. I used to be finished at noon when Bernard wrapped up his thing. I had to do some engineering work to button up the day. But now, as soon as I finish I do the morning show, as you know, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. New York time, CPRmetro.org. And at 9 a.m. I finish. I'll go put more coffee in the coffee machine, and
then
go
Bernard
back.
comes on just to listen.
Yeah, he's doing
right?
he's doing his show. While he's doing his show, I'm starting to collect sound clips from around the world on things that have happened. I'm reading newspapers online. I'm reading the RIA Novosti website. I'm reading Washington Post website. I'm reading NHK World website. I'm reading China Daily, and all these various news sources, and deciding what looks like a story that needs to be told that maybe isn't being told, and then researching the story so that what information we provide is accurate. So that takes from about 9:15, 9:30 until I upload the news program, which has to be up by. They want it to be up by 4:30. The first station that pulls it off the internet does so at 5 p.m. That's the first one that I know of, and that is WFHB in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a college town. Bloomington.
Sure.
So they.
Do you put it up on the server? How do they get it?
Yeah, I have a site. It's cprnews.podbean.com. It's a Podbean site, they call it. So it's a pod site. They take it from there, and some people have taken through an RSS feed, or others FTP, from where the file's uploaded. I also put it at radioforall.org, and I also spread it all over Facebook and stuff like that.
So you're getting quite the reach.
Yeah, we had, just with the stations and a little bit of promotion of the Podbean site, we had our 20,000th hit yesterday. That's just shy of a
way,
year.
huh?
So yeah, so a lot of people are tuning in, and we have people all over the world that are hitting it, which is good because if you travel any and you talk to people in Europe, in Africa, South America, Asia, they have an impression of Americans as being terribly uninformed and ignorant of things, which unfortunately literally is true.
Well, I remember right before, not to cut you off, before the 2003 invasion, I happened to go on vacation to Canada, and when I was hearing from the CBC,
Much different.
just across the thing, I went over to Vancouver, and then my sister lived back in Seattle. Just going that little distance from Vancouver to Seattle was like a whole different world.
It's amazing.
And the thing in Canada was more rational. It wasn't that they were necessarily against the war. Like, they was like very calm, whatever. And then I crossed the border, and it was just like Fox and graphics exploding, and
Right.
And then to go back to the history, how one thing like you'll find on CPR, I found like they'll give you the history of Saddam Hussein, like how he was a CIA agent and stuff.
Yeah,
and
right.
like,
I mean, there's the documents. You read that stuff. We play the sound. We have telephone calls of Rumsfeld, for example. These are matters of historical record. That's him. That's the phone call. It's not edited. It happened.
Yeah.
And yet, that's not a part of the consciousness of the majority of the people at all. Even people that sit in front of CNN or MSNBC or Fox all day long, they never get any of that stuff. So when a talking head gets on, the rare occasion that a talking head gets on one of those channels and challenges, let's say, Rumsfeld's assertions that we have to go to war with Saddam Hussein because he's a bad guy. If you were to say, what are you talking about? Isn't that a big change from what you once said before? Didn't you once before say that you'd loan him $20 so he could play a card game or whatever, and he would deny it, and you get poo-pooed by the host? Most people never heard the actual phone call.
yeah. Which is until you have people on your thing that won't go on like the thing like Richard Wolf, Chris Hedges.
We have an awful lot of folks on that could dice just about anybody that that they put.
Well, like Chris Hedges is saying, why should he bother to go on? Because like they're gonna shout, the other people will shout over him, the other guests will shout over him,
Yeah.
and then it takes more than a soundbite to explain, like
Right.
you know.
That's all you get
Like
too.
because I was found it interesting when you were doing the Ukraine thing, like too, like exposing like who the people that we were putting in power,
Right.
which were like neo-fascist
Right.
thugs,
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
Just like-
nobody here. When you see video from Kiev, which they were running for a good long while when people were on the Maidan, or February and January, February, March. When you're looking at the signs, if you can read Cyrillic alphabet, you see that they have Stepan Banderas up as a hero. You say, okay, who the hell is this? And you go look it up. He was a Nazi collaborator.
Yeah.
He was the head Ukrainian Nazi. He went to try to be Hitler's buddy. Hitler ended up throwing him in jail finally, but he was a wannabe Nazi that thought that the Nazis were should come and help liberate Ukraine. And from the commies and Jews. That was what their thinking was. That's who the United States backed in Ukraine, but you don't hear any discussion of that.
Well, it wasn't the real issue with Ukraine too. Is like the banks just want to get their money.
One of the things that happened that you're not going to hear on MSNBC or CNN is that the son of Vice President Joseph Biden,
Right, I heard about
right
that.
in the middle of all of this happening, ended up on the board of an oil company that is trying to get ownership of some of the state-owned oil in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's like nuts. Or like how about like Syria? You know a little bit about that too, right? With the stuff with ISIS.
Yeah. Look at the coverage of Syria. Well, today, because we did this in the afternoon, I did the news. Well, for the past week, since the United Nations General Assembly has been going on, I've been featuring somebody every day that is someone that's not heard in U.S. media very often, unmediated. And so I've been doing the news early, hoping that some major catastrophe doesn't happen after I've put it up.
Right.
So today, the Syrian foreign minister spoke at the United Nations, and he described in detail his reasoning for his assertion that President Obama's plan to deal with ISIS will not work and is not really serious, and that perhaps, he doesn't say perhaps, that there's clearly other goal intended that's being pursued. So I play a clip of the President of the United States describing last week at the UN what they plan to do with ISIS and why ISIS has to be tackled and how he's planning to do it. And then I play the critique of the Syrian foreign minister, whose critique is as follows. Watch the hands. The United States and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Israel and Jordan and Turkey have been hosting, training, arming, and deploying irregulars, but armies against Syria since February of 2011. These are the so-called rebels, quote unquote. Among them are some, not many, but some Syrian nationals. And so this is to lend the illusion that this is a Syrian uprising. Now, prior to this, I'm told, I have not been to Damascus myself. I've been in the region, but I haven't been to Syria. Some Syrian friends, however, and some Iranian friends, which is right next door, and some Iraqi friends, which is on the others, have all told me that, yes, there was discontent with Assad and with his father, and there were, complaints of brutality, of political favoritism, blah, blah, blah. Well, all the things that you'll find in every country. Because
it's interesting because they're Shia, like Alawites.
Well, that wasn't that big a factor.
That wasn't a big factor?
That wasn't a big factor in most of the secular Arab republics. Egypt under Nasser, this under Iraq under Saddam Hussein, Syria under the Assads.
Wasn't that why we actually sponsored like the Islamic fundamentalism? Because
Yes.
the secularists wanted
This
to
is what
nationalize
they
the
wanted
oil?
to do. Well, look. So anyway, so what happens is there is in every country folks who are not happy, and within that group of folks, there are people with legitimate grievances. But what happened in Syria was not as described. There was not a massive movement and an attempted peaceful revolution. Not at all. When there were protests, there were snipers, it turned out, that were not on the side of the government, which is the same thing that happened in Ukraine. There were people in there that would shoot and try to blame the government to incite people against the government, which they also used that technique in Venezuela in 2002, but they got caught on camera. You know who this guy is? This guy's actually with the right-wing militia. And they name him and they put him on television and everything else and show him shooting at civilians. So anyway, what happened is they sent these fighters in. They had been training and based in Jordan.
Didn't Saudi Arabia bankroll out a lot of them?
Saudi Arabia and Qatar armed them, bankrolled it. You know, they're basically money, like the launderers for the United States.
Yeah.
This is U.S. policy. U.S. policy is essentially to block the ascendance of a competitor or a competing structure to its hegemonic control, to its monopole world, to do that. And so where you have regional powers, you either dominate them or destroy them. Also, to block the development of economies outside of their economic system. And so where you had these socialist economies that were, national-based socialist
Wasn't like
economies.
true of Libya? Like they
Yeah,
had to take it out?
Libya, like Libya, where you have that, you smash the economy. You just destroy the infrastructure and all of it. And finally, you want direct control of the resources. And so if the political climate won't allow that, you create a climate of chaos so that, well, you guys are all shooting each other, I'm going to go fill up this ship full of oil and see you later, and then pay a couple of local government officials. So this was developed in Latin America originally. This is how the United States operated in the 50s and 60s in Latin America.
Right, like Brazil.
All over,
like
all
the
over.
Chile of the overthrow of Allende is a classic textbook.
Yeah, except they didn't create chaos there. They put a fascist dictator in.
Yeah,
but
Pinochet.
Oh man, one of the most brutal. But in places where the people wouldn't allow that, then they had a constant stream of guns, like you had the Contras. You had in Nicaragua either you're going to let us set up a condition where Violeta Chamorro can be elected president, or and restore this Somoza regime, or you're going to be getting shot every time you walk out of your house, as if you were in Little Murders by Jules Feiffer or something.
Run by Ollie North.
Yeah. So that was, a lot of the same people that actually constructed that were involved in constructing Middle East policy for the United States in the 1980s, 1990s, and under the
Like
George
Wolfowitz,
W. Bush.
Richard Pearl.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, and Bolton was a big architect of a lot of that stuff, and he was at the UN.
It was interesting too how Obama kept a lot of the Bush hands who were actually coming from Nixon and stuff.
Yeah. You know what? Look, we're getting almost out of time.
Talking about the fundraiser, but it's kind of good that you're talking about this because this is what people can find.
Yeah,
so
this
you
is
find
what we
at
do.
CPR Metro.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that fundraiser. Like, aren't there going to be like some heavy guests coming? Like
I
Pan
wanted to
Africa?
bring a thing with me, but I didn't. The flyer. I don't remember
And
what
this
the
is
hell's on
on this Saturday, October 4th, from 3 to 7 up in Harlem, 137th Street. And I'm sure the information's on your website. I'm
Where
going
is
to be
it at?
flashing it. What?
What's the venue? Is it St. Mary's?
No, I think it's in a brownstone somewhere.
You've got to
He
go
didn't put it.
to
He said like 137 West Harlem's.
go to our website, cprmetro.org.
And I'm
I'll
also
put the
flashing
information up
on
there
the lower
today.
third throughout the show the address.
Oh, you have it. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, good. Okay. So, I don't remember who's
I
speaking.
know Hugh Hamilton is going to be speaking.
Yeah, that's Hugh Hamilton. I saw on the flyer. I saw a lot of names. I'm not sure they're speakers. I think so.
What is it, like a donation? or is
Dr.
there, like,
Leonard
feeding it in,
Jeffries,
or-
Pam Africa. Well, I don't know the whole regime. I didn't bring the flyer, and I'm supposed
But
to
it's a
promote
good cause, folks, to go out and you're going to get, not only these people like really know what they're talking about, you've they have a great sense of humor, and you'll laugh.
We got 4 hours worth of political activists presenting and honoring Bernard White, who, by the way, deserves to be honored. Bernard helped turn. He helped turn WBAI from being a progressive radio station to being a community resource for progressive change. He brought an awful lot of folks in. He never got an opportunity to finish because there was all kinds of resistance from certain quarters that didn't want to see this happen. But he brought a lot of folks in that used the airtime to help organize and coordinate actions for people to deal with housing.
To be passive, right? He wants to empower you. Which CPR is very good about that. It's not just you sitting back and listening to it. Like, you're going to be empowered. You're going to get awareness.
Yeah,
just wanted to throw that in.
We try to handle it more or less as a communications hub for activists around the world with CPR. We have, because of the internet, a global audience. We have people that listen every day in Belgium and China and India and Venezuela and Chile and New Zealand, all over the planet.
Even Chappaqua, New York.
Yeah,
Hillary and Bill, I listen every day.
I see you pop up. That's right.
Who knows? Bill might secretly listen to it.
I talk about him enough. He should.
And stuff like that. So, folks, it's a great cause. It's a great station. Like I was saying before, Don doesn't get paid for anything for this. Bernard doesn't. They put like hours into it, like to do quality, to get top quality like that, hard work. And doesn't, they got to pay out of their funds to run the server, right? And stuff like that. Nothing comes for cheap.
Multiple servers. Yeah, we have bills we got to pay, and so, and we'd like to give Bernard like an honorarium, I guess, because he's been fantastic, and he deserves a lot better than he got from Pacifica, and I think at some point in time he'll end up getting that too. But if you go to cprmetro.org at our website, the details of the event will be there. It's again Saturday, October 4th, from 3 to 7 p.m. It's going to be 4 hours long, all kinds of activity, exchanges of information, and some very interesting stuff and people.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Don.
Bob, thank you, man. Thank you very much.